So one day I went out to a pumpkin patch to get the biggest pumpkin they had. When I walked up, I saw a dog and thought it was nice, but it barked at me. So I just went along, looked at the pumpkins, and here was the biggest ones, the biggest being 30 pounds. But it wasn't actually, because this one weighed 45 pounds. I looked around at the other pumpkins and ended up getting this one and the giant 45-pound one. I put it in the car and then went home to think about what I was going to do with it. I had 4 ideas: carve it, put it on my head, destroy it with a rubber band ball, or blow it up. And I ended up destroying some other pumpkins with the rubber band ball. Slow motion. And then I put it on as a hat. So like if you want me to blow this pumpkin up, or comment what else you want me to do with it. So as you know, I have this giant rubber band ball, but now I want to make a little rubber band ball to show you how. I first wadded up a clump of bands and then wrapped them around each other until I had this. And then I started doubling up bands and adding them to the clump for a while until I had this. And after that, I just kept on going until I got to this. And it's pretty neat and bouncy. I went on for quite a while after this until it looked like this. And it's pretty cool and weighs a lot less than my other one, weighing 0, and this one weighing 28. And it's not even close to the size of my head. Here's me throwing the big one, and now here's me throwing the small one. Now a basket with the small one, a basket with the big one, eventually. And throwing the big one, and throwing the small one. I had to run after it. Yeah, they're both pretty cool. So one day I wanted to hoist this giant water balloon up into this tree. So I went to Walmart and got a lot of paracord and a tarp. Then I went home and laid out the tarp and the balloon, and then I put the hose in and started filling it up. Until eventually it was big enough and I stopped the water, took the hose out, and zip tied it. And it was pretty cool. We wrapped the tarp around it and then ran the paracord through all the holes. Then I climbed into the tree and threw the paracord over the branch as a pulley, but it was too heavy. So I unzipped it to let some water out and got in it and put my head in it. And then we let the water come out and we tried again, but failed again. So we attached the paracord to the truck and just broke the tarp. So then I let some of the water drain out and put it in a hammock and started filling it up back up again. And I sat on it and even laid on it. And then I started rocking it back and forth and it fell out. So I stood on it and then jumped on it and eventually it broke. Yeah. So sad. So one day after getting this comment, I decided to make a potato gun. So I got out a saw and cut this PVC pipe to its measurement and then cut the other one. And then I added primer and glue to fit the pieces on together. And then did this piece and then that piece, and it was all together. I let the glue set overnight and then came back to put this ignition thingy in. And to be honest, I didn't really know what I was doing, so my dad helped me put it in. I glued it on and pressed the button and it worked. Then I got all the necessary stuff out, put a potato in, and put some hairspray in, and it didn't do anything. So my brother and dad helped me, and the back blew off of it, and wrecked the tree. I guess I didn't use enough glue on it. Do not try this at home, and like if I should try again. So one day I ordered this zip line to put in a tree. I opened it up, and there was a lot of different random stuff I didn't know much about, so I had my dad help. We took it out and decided on what tree to put it in, and then I got some stuff, dropped a ladder, put it in the tree, and attached this thing around it. Then I tightened it and added the actual zip line to it and got some more stuff. We talked about the instructions for a bit and then looped the handlebars on and wrapped the zip line around the other tree, which took until dark to get the slack out of. So we left and came back in the morning and my dad finished tightening it up. Then I tested my weight on it, for safety, and went for it. And it was pretty fun. Don't try this at home though. Then here's my brother who went after me, and he actually got pretty addicted to the zip line and went again. And here's me going without sitting on the seat. Yeah, I almost hit my feet on a lot of stuff. So one day I decided to fill up a giant hamster ball with ball pit balls in it up with water. So I got in, let it air up, and then began filling it up with water. The water shocked me at first, and then I just let it fill up and stopped it before it got too heavy. I then laid in it for a second. It was pretty cool. And then I got up and went off, and fell pretty hard. And after that, I got up and fell again. But I went out, and then decided to lay down and put my face underwater. Then I just chilled in it. It's pretty nice. I walked around for a bit, went out into the yard, slid in the balls, and then did a cannonball. And after all that, I decided to get out. Let me know what else I should do with it. So I'm back at it again with the rubber band ball, and I need more rubber bands again. So I went to Walmart and counted out like 12 packs of rubber bands in the floor, and then grabbed them all and went home. And I first started with the pack I ordered on Amazon to match the surface of the ball, and after I was done with that, I took a break and came back later to place all the colored rubber bands. I dumped them all out into a pile, which was a lot, and then began placing them for quite a while until I was done. And the scale said it weighed 39 pounds, so I double checked on another one and it said the same thing. It's really hard to throw and officially impossible to make a basket with now, but I can stand on it, kinda. Like if you think I should keep going. So one day I got a comment that said to zip line into an inflatable pool. So I ordered one on Amazon, opened it up, and then blew it up. Then I carried it over to a good spot, got a hose, but it was too short. So I got a longer one. I let it fill up and then went. Don't try this at home, by the way. And it kind of hurt. Then I almost fell. Let me know what else I should do. So one day I went to the clearance aisle of Walmart to look for random stuff to buy, and I found this pair of hover shoes. And I wanted to hover, so I got them. I opened them up, and they looked kind of used. But I still got on them and tried to ride, but failed at first and eventually got the hang of it. And they didn't actually hover, and were basically like a hoverboard in two separate pieces. It kind of reminded me of roller skating. I also tried to stand on one foot, and failed. Then I spun around and drove backwards. Then my brother tried them and failed at first, but eventually got the hang of them, kinda. Pretty neat. So one day I got a comment that said to zip line into a ball pit. So I took my inflatable pool, dumped it out, cleaned it with water, and then poured all the ball pit balls I had into it. And when it was done, I jumped into it. And then got on the zip line to test it out. And I'm a pro, so don't try this at home. And then my brother went. Then I went again and hit my arm on the seat on the drop. Yeah. Comment anything else I should try. So one day I got a comment that said to turn my brother's truck bed into a pool and swim in it. And I've already done this for YouTube, but not really for TikTok, so here you go. I filled the pool up with water and then got in it, sat down, and we took off. And it was pretty cool at first. I put my head underwater, and that was cool. I came up and then just chilled and enjoyed the ride. It was all pretty chill for the most part, and then we went kind of fast, and I also splashed out some water. Then we went back home and I got out. What else should I do? So I'm now to part 20 of this, which is crazy, and I'm just going to keep going. So I went to Walmart and bought all the colored rubber bands they had, then went home and dumped them all out into a pile. And then I got busy placing them until I was done with that pile. Then I got the 2 packs I ordered, dumped them all out into a pile, and began placing them until the ball was finished. And it now weighs an astounding 42 pounds. It is very hard to bounce now, and its basketball days are just over. But I am getting better at standing on it, so that's cool. Like if you want me to keep going. So one day I got a comment that said to float down the creek in this inflatable pool, so I cleaned it out, then put it in my brother's truck and headed on down to the creek. I re-aired it up first and then carried it on down, went across the water and got in and took off. And I was just rowing along under the bridge. It was pretty fun. I started to pick up my speed. Pshee. And like all creek videos, I just kept going out further and further until I was gone forever. Nah, not really. I came back. Comment any other ideas you want me to try. So I'm now on part 21 of this rubber band ball, and no one ever seems to want me to stop, so I went to Walmart and bought all the colored rubber bands they had. Then I went home and started out with the bag I ordered on Amazon, and I placed that entire pile. And then I took a break, as usual, and came back to place all the colored rubber bands. And I dumped them all out into a pile, and then placed it all, which took quite a while, but I finished, and it now weighs 45 pounds. Could probably take me out, and I broke my already broken basketball goal with it. But hey, I can stand on it. And like if you want me to keep going. So one day I went to Walmart and got Flex Seal to test on random junk. I started off with a basketball, sprayed the entire thing until it was completely covered, and then I moved on to a plastic ball and did it. And after that I broke a hoverboard that already didn't work and sprayed it. Then I did this old ramp with paper covering the big hole. Next I sprayed this broken snow shovel and came back the next day when everything was dry. And I kicked the basketball, messed around with it, and it mainly just felt like rubber. Next up was the shovel, and it looked pretty repaired until I tried to dig with it. Now here's the plastic ball, and here's the hoverboard that fell apart when I tried to touch it. But the ramp actually looked pretty good, so I decided to jump it. And it held up, so I jumped it again even faster. And it didn't hold up. Let me know what else I should try. So one day someone commented to Flex Seal my broken basketball goal that's missing a lot of pieces. So I bought Flex Seal, duct tape, and a new basketball, and then went home and duct taped the entire backboard so I'd have a base for the Flex Seal. And then I Flex Sealed the entire thing on both sides until I was done, and then I came back the next day to see if it was dry. And it was, so I tested it. And it held up pretty good and took all the balls with ease. And then I threw it in the woods on accident, got it, and then kept on shooting. And I'd say it was a success because nothing would break it. And it looks pretty good. Like if you think I should Flex Seal something else. So one day I got a comment that said to Flex Seal an egg and try to break it. So I gave it a coat of Flex Seal and then left and came back later to give it another coat. After that I let it dry and then came back and tested it. And it didn't hold up. So then I had the idea to try a pumpkin. So I bought one at Walmart and then gave it a nice coat of Flex Seal. And then I gave it another one on the bottom after it was dry. And then I tested it, hitting it up against stuff, and it was pretty durable. So I threw it, and it held up. So I threw it again, and again, and it finally cracked. Then I threw it into the garden to try and grow a pumpkin patch. So I'm now to part 22 of this, and everyone just wants more, and more. So I went to Walmart and bought more. I bought all the packs of colored rubber bands I could carry, and then I went home and dumped them all out into a pile, which was a lot. And then I got busy placing all the bands, which took so long I almost quit. But I didn't, and it's done and now weighs 48 pounds. And it's like 3 times the size of my head and can even crush a can of Flex Seal. Wow. And I'm also able to fully balance on it now, like if I should keep on going. So one day I wanted to make a tree house out of duct tape, so I went to Walmart and bought a lot of duct tape. Then I went home, got a ladder, and climbed up the tree and was going to start by filling these 2 holes up with duct tape. I started with this one, stood on it, and then did the other one, and stood on it. And then I thought I was going to make a wall of duct tape, but didn't, so instead I tried to make a rope ladder of duct tape, and that failed. And the next day I decided to just finish the whole thing off with cardboard because duct tape was too hard. So I placed the first sheet down, taped it, and it looked like this. And then I took another sheet up, placed it down, taped it, and it looked like this. I then added one final piece, and it was done. Pretty cool looking and perfectly stable. Here's from the inside, and here's the outside. Let me know what else I should do. So one day I got a comment that said to Flex Seal a water balloon, so I got Flex Seal in a water balloon and filled the water balloon up. I shook the can and then sprayed it, and it popped. So I filled up another balloon, and it held up while I sprayed it. I finished it and let it sit, but when I came back, it was popped. So then I tried freezing one. It froze overnight, and the next day I took it out and Flex Sealed it. I sprayed it until it was completely black, and then I took it into the garage to dry, hoping it wouldn't melt. And it didn't, but the balloon still popped. Let me know what else I should try. So it's now part 23, and I'm really starting to think it's never going to end. But that's okay. I went to Walmart and, bought a bunch of colored rubber bands, then went home, dumped them all out into a nice pile, and then I started placing them. And it's to the point now where the bands sometimes break, and it hurts. I took a break, as usual, and came back to place this bag I ordered on Amazon. And I placed it, and the ball now weighs over 51 pounds. Could probably kill a bear, and is no longer a good basketball. More like a chair. Here's it next to a basketball. And here's my trick chat. Ooh, like if I should keep on going. So one day someone commented that I need to put more coats of Flex Seal on the egg. So I Flex Sealed another egg, and then put another coat on the other side. And after that I let it dry, then put another coat on. And then put another coat on. And then put one last coat on. And it was done and seemed pretty sturdy, so I tested it from a waist-high drop, and it held up pretty well. So I went a little higher, and it seemed a little bit mushed in. So I threw it up in the air, and then it was like completely mushed in. So I just threw it up one more time for the heck of it, and it was crushed. So one day I decided to fill a giant hamster ball up with water and get in it. I moved it to level ground and then put the hose in to let it fill up. Then I put some wood down so it wouldn't roll and let it fill. And here's the checkpoint. It's pretty cool looking, and I hit it on the side and then added some more air. And after that I let it fill up to this point. And I'm going to stop it when it gets to the zipper. And it got there, so I stopped it. Then I put some goggles on and unzipped it, but it broke. But I got in anyway. I went in and swam to the side. And I looked like a fish. And then I struggled to get out. Then I threw the snorkel and went back under with just the goggles. And it was pretty cool. I swam around, did a circle, and then did another circle. And then struggled again to come up. And it was kind of like a water balloon, so I jumped on it, rocked on it, flipped on it, and then swam on it. Let me know any other ideas you have for me to try. So it's now to part 24 of making this rubber band ball, and I went to Walmart and got more colored rubber bands. I got a bunch and then went home and started out with this new pack I ordered on Amazon. They were pretty cool and more stretchy than the normal colored rubber bands. I placed that entire pile and then took a break and came back to place all these other colored rubber bands. I dumped them out into a pile and then placed the entire thing until I was done. And I also ordered this little rubber band ball just for fun to look at and stuff. The big one now weighs 55 pounds and is pretty hard to get down the stairs. And compared to the little one, they bounce similar, but I can stand on this one and not on this one. And I can toss this one, but not this one. Like if you want me to keep on going. So one day I ordered some heavy duty water repellent to try and waterproof some things. It said it required 24 hours to dry, and I tried without letting it dry, and yeah. So I got a bunch of random stuff and started waterproofing. First with these shoes so I could run on water. Then this cardboard, then this paper, and then this random hat I found. And also this shirt, which would be great for rainy days. Then I let it all dry and came back the next day. And the cardboard kind of worked because the spray side was way more dry than the other side. And the paper also worked surprisingly well. Pretty dry. Then I put the hat on and it kind of worked. And then I put on the shirt, which actually worked really well. The water ran right off it. Then I took the shoes on down to the creek, put them on, and tried to run. And it failed, so I walked back sad, and then failed at skipping a rock. So one day I got a comment that said to fill my hamster ball with Orbeez in water. So I dumped a bunch of Orbeez in, zipped it up, and then let it air up. And once it was aired up, I added some water until it was done. Then I set it in this spot and let it set overnight and came back the next day and it looked like this. I deflated it and then messed with the Orbeez. And I'd never really even touched Orbeez, so it was pretty cool. I then got in all the way, which was really hot because it sat in the sun all day. And then just messed around with the Orbeez until it was all the way filled up. And then I walked around in it and then shaked all around in it like this. And then splashed them all. And then did a snow angel. I also went out on the road, ran for a bit, then got hot and tired and got out. Let me know what else I should do in it. So one day I decided to take my giant water balloon and throw my rubber band ball on it to see if it would break it. I set it down in the yard, tied the zip tie and hose around it, and then let it fill up until it was all the way full. Then I took the hose out, sealed it again, and put the rubber band ball on it. And it just kind of rolled off at first, so I dropped it on it, and it stood up. So I threw it on it, and it busted. Here's a slow-mo. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. Let me know any other ideas you have. So one day someone commented to use my waterproof spray on a cardboard boat. So I found this cardboard box and taped it up on all sides to seal it. Then I cut out a hole for me to sit in and then taped that. And then I started spraying all the waterproofing stuff. I sprayed it all around and on every single side until it was done. And then I let it sit overnight and came back the next day, put it in my brother's truck and took it on down to the creek. And when I put the box in the water, it was still dry. So I set it down, got in, and started rowing. And it was completely working. I went out under the bridge and then further and then just chilled for a second and kept on rowing. This was probably one of the best cardboard boats I've ever made. And I just kept on rowing forever. So I'm now to part 25 of this giant rubber band ball and everyone just wants more and more and more. So I ordered these new rubber bands on Amazon and they were way too small. So I got sad and then I went to Walmart and bought a bunch of colored rubber bands and then went home. Then I, dumped them out into a pile and started placing them, which took longer than usual for some reason. But I finished, then took a break and came back later to place these other colored rubber bands I ordered. I placed that entire pile, and the ball kind of looks like Spider-Man now, and weighs 57 pounds. I took it downstairs and outside, then threw it and sat on it, and it's also way bigger than my head, and I can stand on it. So, if you want me to keep going. So one day someone commented to make another cardboard boat, but this time use Flex Seal. So I used the same broken one, thinking the Flex Seal would just fix it. I sprayed the whole thing, gave it a coat on this side, and then that side. And when it was done, I let it dry and came back the next day. I then put it in my brother's truck and I took it on down to the creek. I put it in the water, got in, and started to row. I rowed all the way out through under the bridge, and it was pretty cool. I was just chilling, and eventually water started to leak in, so I tried to get out and fell. And then I drug it home. So one day I got a Crown Royale bottle to see if it was really indestructible. I dropped it from waist high and it was fine. So then I gave it a little toss and it shattered. Here's the slow-mo. Yeah, I was a little confused. I guess TikTok lied to me, so I walked away sad. So one day someone commented to put Flex Seal on the Crown Royale bottle and then see if it broke. So I sprayed Flex Seal on it, gave it a good coat, then came back later and gave it another coat. And then came back later and gave it one last coat. And then it was time to drop it. I took it to the cul-de-sac and dropped it from waist high and it was fine. So then I threw it up in the air and it cracked a little bit. But the Flex Seal kept all the glass together, which was cool. Let me know what else I should do. So I'm now to part 26 of making this giant rubber band ball, and I'm going to keep on going. I ordered these bigger rubber bands on Amazon, and they weren't as small as the last ones, but they were still really hard to stretch around the ball. And I dumped them all out into a pile and placed it. And it was harder to place than any other pile I've ever placed. And it was exhausting, so I left and came back the next day to place 2 more packs of them. And I placed that pile, and it now weighs 61 pounds. I took it downstairs and compared it to this ball, then threw it, and then stood on it, kinda. More like sat on it. Anyway, if you want me to keep on going. So one day someone commented to drop my rubber band ball from somewhere high, and I don't live anywhere where I can really do that because it weighs 65 pounds and could hurt someone. So I took it to this abandoned race car track, took it to the second story, and dropped it. And it bounced and then just rolled into the ground, and I was like, I gotta do something else. So I went down to this pipe, and I'm like, can I put it in there? So I looked, and it just gradually got smaller, so my ball would have got stuck. Glad I didn't do that. but I just ended up throwing it off and it bounced off into the fence. And it got this mark on it. Oh well, let me know what else I should do with my rubber band ball. So one day it was really windy, so I took this giant 6-foot water balloon and I tried to fill it up with air. I got my air pump out, filled it all the way up until it was pretty big. Then I stopped, zip-tied it, tied a string around it, and ran around with it. It was pretty massive. I spun it around, threw it. It didn't pop. I kicked it, still didn't pop. And then I threw it up in the air, caught it, and we were best friends. I ran around, put it in my brother's truck, tried to shoot a basket with it, and then I bopped it with my head and bopped it a little too far and it popped. I was sad. So one day someone commented for me to drop my rubber band ball in glass. So I went to Walmart and bought a bunch of different glass items, then went home, laid out a tarp, and started with this glass vase. I set it down, then got the rubber band ball and threw it on it. And here's the slow-mo. It completely shattered and tore rubber bands off my rubber band ball. Yeah, I didn't expect that much, so I got this more solid piece of glass, laid it down, and crushed it. And here's that slow-mo. It was obliterated as well, and knocked a bunch more bands off. My ball is pretty mutilated. I washed some of the glass off, and there was a glass piece stuck in it. Comment what else I should try. So one day I decided to test Flex Seal on a bunch of random glass stuff. I started with this glass llama that's head fell off. I sprayed it with Flex Seal after putting the head on and then let it rest. I then broke this vase to Flex Seal it back together but ended up breaking it too much. So then I just made it stronger with Flex Seal. I then shattered a picture frame, which I guess Flex Seal can't really fix, but oh well, I still Flex Sealed it. And then I let it all sit out and came back when it was dry. And it had rained, but I think it still Flex Sealed and worked because the llama was fine. It was super sturdy and it held together. And the picture frame, well, yeah. But the vase before broke when I dropped it and now it's super sturdy. These are decorations now. So I'm now all the way to part 27 of my rubber band ball and I need more bands. So I ordered these big rubber bands and started placing them. And these bands are really hard to place, so this was really exhausting. So I took a break and then came back later to place these colored rubber bands and make it look good. I placed the entire pile and it now weighs 65 pounds. I let it roll out to the cul-de-sac, picked it up, threw it down, then tried to stand on it, then threw it again, and then my brother tried to stand on it. And like, if you want me to keep on going. So one day someone commented that I should cover my rubber band ball in Flex Seal, and seeing as I broke it and it needed a little bit of fixing because there's glass shards on it, I thought, why not? So I rolled it out to my yard and started spraying it. I sprayed all around it until it was done. Actually, I gave it a little bit more and then let it sit. And the next day I came back and it had rained, but it was still solid compared to the side that wasn't Flex Seal. I picked it up and took it out to the cul-de-sac and it bounced the same and was just kind of stale. I rolled it into the basketball goal. Boom. Then stood on it and let me know what else I should do. So one day I bought this giant slingshot to launch random stuff. I taped this side to the tree and then the other and it was ready to launch. So I filled up a box of water balloons, put one in, and it launched pretty good. Then the next one hit a tree. Then I had my brother stand back and shot him in his direction and then almost hit him a few times. This one was right past him. And here's the first person. I put it in, pull it back, and launch it. Then I went to Walmart to get some pumpkins to try to launch them. I went home and it wasn't working very well. This was my best launch. So I got mad, got on the zip line, and threw it at a tree. Then took the broken pieces and tried to launch them, and they actually did pretty well. Here's another one. Then I had some little pumpkins I also tried, and almost hit my brother. Here it is from behind, flying in the air. And here's another first-person launch. Let me know what else I should try. So it's now to part 28 of making this giant rubber band ball, and I ordered more rubber bands. I dumped them out and placed them. And when I was finished with that, I got out these garbage bag rubber bands that I ordered that are also pretty colorful. And then I placed another pile of those ones. And it now weighs 68 pounds. I took it downstairs, out to the yard, into the cul-de-sac, and look at it next to a basketball. Ordinary basketball and hoop, rubber band ball and hoop. Tossing basketball, tossing band ball. But I can stand on this one. Like if you want me to keep on going.